Hello, I'm Amy Zawi with the Jerusalem Connection Red Alert Report for Wednesday, September 18th. What can we do about it? I speak, of course, about anti-Semitism and the BDS, Boycott, Divest, and Sanction movement, which is fueled by anti-Semitism. Jews for Jesus releases a weekly magazine called Issues. And in their blast last week on 9/11, they had a leading article entitled 9 Ways to Fight Anti-Semitism by a young woman named Ariel Randall. Ariel is a Jews for Jesus member and a Zionist and a Jewish woman who believes that Yeshua is Messiah. I am a Christian in the evangelical upbringing realm, and I find this list to be refreshing and applicable and a sign of hope for all of us. This list is something we can all do every day without being an elected official, a person in power, or some sort of full-time activist. I'm going to read you the 9 ways and comment on how I will apply them and also how Ariel suggests to apply them. Number 1, stay informed on current events. This, of course, means you may have to find news outside the network or cable news realms. The Times of Israel and the Jerusalem Post are 2 great resources to find out about anti-Semitic activities ongoing around the world. These publications are 1 click away on a Google search. May I also suggest some other organizations that you can find on Google or on Facebook. Palestinian Media Watch is one, Honest Reporting is another, Fighting BDS is a great resource, as well as the Jerusalem Connection International, our publication. Number 2, encourage non-Jews to join the conversation. To all my Jewish friends who share their concerns about anti-Semitism and who also sometimes get frustrated that it falls on deaf ears within their own community, be sure to engage non-Jews in the conversation. One way to do this is to bridge the gap between the social networks by inviting non-Jews to celebrate Shabbat dinner or a Seder dinner. Recently, a Jewish family that we are already dear friends with invited us to their Shabbat dinner. This is a family that I already love, and this engagement with a dinner just brought us together on a deeper level. As a Christian, I like to engage people who are not really religious at all in the conversation because most non-religious people do share a sense of fair play, equality among races, cultures, and religions, and of course, a knowledge of history. Number 3, engage in protests and acts of solidarity. Recently, in Germany, it was advised that observant Jewish men not wear their head covering in public for fear of reprisal. The reaction from many non-Jews in the area, well, that was to go out and show their support and solidarity for their Jewish neighbors by wearing that same head covering. To me, this was an awesome reaction by the community. In the U.S., I often participate in solidarity events in and around the D.C. metro area where I live. I will also protest an organization that is anti-Semitic. I will voice that opposition to and against Congress members or other leaders who are expressing anti-Semitic notions or somehow displaying it. I will not buy products from organizations that engage in, support, or participate in BDS activities. 4, speak up against everyday acts of anti-Semitism. I have to tell you that I have been to dinner parties and I've heard some very off-color or stereotypical comments about Jewish people as a whole or particular Jewish people that someone might know. And I will speak up politely and set the record straight. This happened even just this summer where I was at a dinner party with mostly Democrats, and one person who's not really hateful or bigoted in any way perpetuated a stereotype, and I very politely educated on the history of where that stereotype came from and how it's an inaccurate assessment. It had to do with the origins of wealth and a good money management that Jewish people tend to have, as well as their commitment to education for their children. Number 5, report it. Acts of aggression and intimidation often go unreported in schools, in the workplace, and in the community. I tell you, when you witness this or feel it, to write a letter to the editor of your local papers or your regional papers. Post these first-hand accounts to social media, and of course report them to school officials, HR departments, and the police as necessary. Do not be afraid. Number 6, check your own biases. In our efforts to correct others, we need to look in the mirror, examine our own motives and methods. The point at which we repel people, well, that's the point we become the very thing we're trying to fight against. If we are militant and strident in our discussions, we will turn people off from listening, and nobody will understand any facts or reason with that kind of delivery. Number 7, remember the past. Knowing Jewish history is one firm necessity for fighting anti-Semitism. Of course, the Holocaust is important to know about, the history leading up to it and the history since there, including the history of the modern state of Israel. And, of course, biblical history. Context and facts will shed light on many of today's issues and correct people that didn't know they didn't understand the facts. To quote Miss Ariel's points on number 7, from Haman to Hamas, our people have witnessed God's faithfulness and protection over and over again, and we must pass this legacy down to each generation. Our survival against all odds is even considered by some the most compelling pieces of evidence of the existence of God. Number 8, talk to God about it. We have a famous verse that we often quote and say to each other, which is pray for the peace of Jerusalem. This is not just about praying for a physical peace in a city in the Middle East, but it is also a prayer for all Jewish people worldwide. God is aware of these injustices that are going on, and we need to seek His peace and guidance on how and when to engage in the battle against anti-Semitism. Number 9, pursue healing and reconciliation. I'm going to quote here again Miss Ariel's words. There are 2 natural and understandable reactions to the hate Jewish people have endured for centuries: to let the pain destroy us, or to perpetuate the pain towards others. But neither of these things will bring healing. We must oppose anti-Semitism in every form, but at the same time show God's forgiveness and call both ourselves and others to daily acts of repentance, forgiveness, and reconciliation. Yeshua taught His followers to forgive those who sin against us, just as we ask God to forgive our own sins, Matthew 6:12. But he didn't teach us to just love your enemies. He endured a brutal death to offer that reconciliation with God to all humanity, even those who opposed Him. God has seen again the injustices. One day we will all be held accountable, but there is hope for healing and forgiveness found in the here and now, amidst our brokenness, through God's transformative work in our hearts when we are reconciled to Him. End of quote. I am often saddened when I see fellow Zionists, Jews or Christians, become hateful, mocking, or militant in the battle against anti-Semitism. That doesn't mean that don't call out the wrong when we see it or expose the hate when we see it, but I try not to bash an individual or an organization. Expose, not bash. Nobody will see their error in their own ways if they are on defense. I'd like to thank Ariel Randall for her insightful list shared on the Jews for Jesus web publication called Issues Magazine last week. I hope you can all benefit from these insights. Shavua Tov, and have a great week.